So the IG report just came out, and I will be going through the entire report with more of an analysis later in the week, but I wanted to summarize something that's so damning from the beginning of this that I think it's worth talking about on its own. Now, I've been writing since about October of 2017 about the following. If the Obama administration used their intel agencies to spy on a political opponent using unverified opposition research, it is the biggest political scandal in the history of the country. And I stand by that. The reason is, remember, we talk about things like Watergate, where you had Nixon had a couple of bumbling oafs going through a hotel trying to get information on their opponent. Well, imagine instead of that, if Nixon had sent the entire FBI, they were able to wiretap people, investigate people, etc. The FBI and the rest of our intel agencies are the most powerful investigative and intel agencies in the history of the world. They could turn your life upside down in a moment's notice, could wiretap, do all this other stuff to violate your rights. And to use them as a weapon against your opponents using unverified opposition research that your party paid for is way more influencing an election than anything that Russia, China, North Korea, etc. could all do combined. And I was told, oh, no, that can't be the case. The dossier was verified, or the dossier wasn't used, or even if the dossier was used, it wasn't the critical factor in getting a FISA warrant of Carter Page. We now know, thanks to the IG report, that not only was I correct, but it's actually worse than it initially seemed. So I'm going to go through a brief summary of just this issue regarding this. Now, I think that you should read the IG report yourself when you're able to, because what's going to happen is you'll see people spin it, including myself. I'll be honest, we all bring our own biases. But the media, the dems, the intel agencies are going to spin this saying, oh, it doesn't say that crimes were committed, therefore everything's okay. But this is damning. It talks specifically about how these protocols were broken and how damaging it was. And remember, what they're justifying here, as I'll get to the end, is they're saying any president can use any rumor they want from here on out to spy on their opponents, which is absurd, and that would destroy our country. So let's start at the top. The first claim that you heard people defend was, oh no, the dossier wasn't the most important part. It wasn't important at all. But we're talking about the application of spying on Carter Page. Now, for those of you who don't know, the FISA court, it's just real simple. As an American, the government, the FBI is not allowed to spy on you unless they have probable cause that you're an agent of a foreign power. In this case, they believed Carter Page, or they claimed Carter Page, was an agent of Russia. So they have to go to the special court, the FISA court, to be able to get an application to be able to spy on Carter Page, right? So the first argument that this IG proves is actually, yes, the dossier was critical and the linchpin in being able to spy on Carter Page. So this is from page 7 at the top here. It says, we determined that the Crossfire Hurricane team's receipt of the Steele's election reporting on September 19, 2016 played a central and essential role in the FBI department's decision to seek the FISA order. Now, I'm not going to read the rest of this, but if you read it, it talks about how higher-ups involved at the FBI ultimately determined before the Steele dossier, no, we can't get a wiretap on, we can't get a FISA warrant on Carter Page. But then when the FBI reapproached them after getting the Steele information, they said, okay, now it's good enough. So it included 5 points, the FISA application, in order to send to the court, because you have to make your case to this FISA court that you're going to spy on an American citizen, which is especially heinous when it's one connected to the president, the person in charge of the FBI's political opponent. But here's the 5 points they made, and I'm going to discuss these briefly afterwards. 1, that Russia was trying to influence the election. 2, the Russian government had attempted to get in contact with people connected to Trump, according to some evidence. 3, that Carter Page had connections to Russia in the past. 4, that Page coordination with Russian government in 2016, that presidential election activities, all of the illegalities that Steele alleged in his report. And 5, Page's statements to the FBI that he had talked to Russians that were going to fund a think tank project of his. Now, what you'll notice is points 1, 2, 3, and 5 don't allege anything illegal whatsoever. For example, it is entirely possible that it could be true that Russians wanted to influence the election. That's most likely true. It could also be true that they were trying to contact people in the Trump campaign. Okay, but that doesn't allege that the Trump campaign did anything illegal with them. It could also be true that Carter Page had worked in Russia and had connections to Russia. And it could be true that Carter Page said, hey, some Russians were going to fund this think tank of mine. None of that proves that Carter Page is an agent of Russia at all. The only allegation that he potentially is number 4, which is the Steele dossier, the allegations that Steele provided. Now, the IG report goes on to say, quote, in support of the 4th element in the FISA application, which is what I just talked about, Carter Page alleged coordination with the Russian government in 2016 U.S. presidential election activities. The application relied, quote, entirely on the following information from the Steele reports, page 80, 94, 95, and 102. In other words, the entirety of the allegation that Carter Page was an agent of Russia came from the Steele reporting. That proves that opposition research was the sole allegations that was used to spy on someone connected to the Trump campaign. Okay, now we have to ask ourselves, was this information verified by the FBI? So we come down to page 9. Quote, we found that the FBI did not have information corroborating the specific allegations against Carter Page in Steele's reporting when it relied upon his reports in the first FISA application or subsequent renewal applications. The OGC and NSD attorneys told us that while the FBI's Woods procedures described in Chapter 2 require that every factual assertion in a FISA application be verified, when information is attributed to the FBI, the Woods procedures require only that the agent verify while supporting documentation that the application accurately affects what was told. The procedures do not require the agent to corroborate what was said. However, absent corroboration for the factual assertions in the election reporting, it was particularly important for FISA applications to articulate the FBI's knowledge of Steele's background and its assessment of his reliability. On these points, the application advised the court that Steele was believed to be a reliable source for 3 reasons. His professional background, his history of work with the FBI, and his prior non-election reporting, which FBI described as corroborated. As discussed below, the representations about Steele's prior reporting were overstated and not been approved by Steele's handling agent. Our review found that FBI personnel fell far short of the requirement in FBI policy that they ensure that all factual statements in FISA applications are scrupulously accurate. We identified multiple instances in which factual assertions relied upon in the first FISA application were inaccurate, incomplete, or unsupported by appropriate documentation based upon information the FBI had in its possession at the time the application was filed. We found the problems we identified were primarily caused by the Crossfire Hurricane team failing to share all relevant information with the OI, and consequently, the information was not considered by the department decision makers who ultimately decided the applications. In other words, the FBI agents working on this, whether through bias or through ineptitude, failed to disclose all of the relevant information. Therefore, the judges making the FISA application didn't have what they were required to have. That the FBI gave scrupulously accurate information as to what they were requesting for the FISA warrant. They didn't do that. Now, here for the first FISA application, here are 7 things that were omitted or got wrong based on this application, and we'll go through them all one by one. 1. The omitted information the FBI had obtained from another U.S. government agency detailing its prior relationship with Page, including that Page had been approved as an, quote, operational contact for another agency from 2008 to 2013, and that Page had provided information to the other agency concerning his prior contacts with certain Russian intelligence officers, one of which overlapped with the facts asserted in the FISA application. This is unbelievably damning. Now, again, this is another thing that I was reporting on for over a year now, which was, we know people say, well, Carter Page was shady. You know how we know he was shady? He had prior contacts with Russians. Yes, and he was an informant for other government agencies in order to ensure that Russian criminals went to prison. So that would be like if the FBI approached me and said, hey, can you help us bring down this gangster? And I said, sure. And then another agency saying, Rob had connections with a gangster. Well, yeah, in order to help the FBI. So the FBI omitted the fact that actually Page was working with another agency to help bring down Russian intel officers, and at least one of them overlapped with facts asserted in the FISA application. That is incredible. Had a judge known, wait, these contacts weren't nefarious at all. The FBI saying, nefarious contacts with Russians. But had the judge known, well, wait, it's not nefarious. This was helping another agency bring down these Russians. That was relevant information that was withheld. Now, I've talked about this over and over, and people just want to ignore it. They say, Carter Page is a shady guy. He deserved this. Number 2, included a source characterization statement asserting Steele's prior reporting had been corroborated and used in criminal proceedings, which overstated the significance of Steele's past reporting as it was not approved by Steele's handling agent as required by the Woods procedure. In other words, they said, this Christopher Steele guy is great, but that was blown way out of proportion, and actually the information that he had given them prior was never corroborated. 3rd, omitted information relevant to the reliability of Person 1, a key Steele subsource who was attributed with providing the information in Report 95 and some of the information in Reports 80 and 182 relied upon in the application. Namely that Steele himself told members of Crossfire Hurricane that Person 1 was a boaster and an egoist and may engage in embellishment. In other words, They're presenting this information like it's accurate that Carter Page did something, but one of their sources that Steele's using, Steele's admitting, this person boasts, and a lot of times he says things that are embellished. But they didn't tell the FISA court that that was the case. So the FISA court's just assuming, this must be a credible person. 4, asserted that the FBI had assessed the Steele did not directly provide to the press information on the September 23rd Yahoo News article based on the premise that Steele had told the FBI that he only shared his election-related research with the FBI and Fusion GPS. This premise was incorrect and contradicted by documentation in the Woods file. Steele had told the FBI that he also gave his information to the State Department. In other words, they lied. When they're providing this information, they're supposed to say this is scrupulously accurate what happened. But they lied because they knew at the time that Steele had talked to people in the State Department. Therefore, he could have been a source for the Yahoo News article, but they lied and said that wasn't the case, that they had verified he'd only talked to the FBI and Fusion GPS. Another omission. 5, omitted Papadopoulos' consensually monitored statements to an FBI CHS in September 2016 denying that anyone associated with the Trump campaign was collaborating with Russia or with outside groups like WikiLeaks in the release of the emails. In other words, Papadopoulos testified and told people, look, there was no connection whatsoever with trying to work with WikiLeaks, trying to work with Russians, anything like that. Even though that's what the Steele dossier is alleging, and it's what's alleged in the FISA application. Instead of providing the information that Papadopoulos directly testified to the opposite of that, they omitted it. 6, omitted Page's consensually monitored statements to an FBI CHS in August 2016 that Page had literally never met or said one word to Paul Manafort and that Manafort had not responded to any of Page's emails. If true, those statements were in tension with claims in Report 95 that Page was participating in a conspiracy with Russia by acting as an intermediary on Manafort on behalf of the Trump campaign. In other words, again, anytime evidence comes up that discredits their assertion, what they're trying to say, they just leave it out. In this case, we have Page saying, I never even met with Manafort. I never even talked with the guy. How could I be an intermediary between Manafort and Russia? I've never even talked to the guy. But again, that information was omitted. Now remember, these policies are there for a reason. They're trying to strip a U.S. citizen of his rights, right to privacy, right to freedom, things of that nature. So the system says you have to be scrupulously accurate and provide all material evidence, leaving off the other side of the equation of, actually, here's facts and statements that show the exact opposite of what we're trying to report. That's not allowed. That's illegitimate. That's violating FBI policy, which is what the IG is finding here. Finally, including Page's consensually monitored statements to an FBI CHS in October 2016, the FBI believed supported its theory that Page was an agent of Russia, but omitted other statements Page made that were inconsistent with its theory, including denying ever having met Sechin or Dvinkin, or even knowing who Dvinkin was. If true, these statements contradicted the claims in Report 94 that Page had met secretly with those two about future cooperation with Russia and getting derogatory information about Hillary. In other words, so they have these reports or these testimony through FBI informants and discussions where Page is telling them things and they're taking part of it. They're saying, see, part of this shows that Page knows some things about Russia. But then they leave out the second half of that where Page is saying, by the way, I've never met these two Russians. They leave that off because it contradicts Steele's testimony. So again, we see they're just selectively taking things and spinning only one story. Now, this sounds confusing because we're talking about, FISA applications and the FBI and, the idea of Russian influence. But just take any kind of sort of investigation where you have investigative agencies doing this. That's not allowed. Like in your life, in your legal system, if there's a bunch of evidence that shows that maybe you committed a crime, but then in the same statements where, someone says, well, actually, I did see Rob walk into that bank. And so they're like, Rob must have robbed this bank. But then that person goes on to say, but ultimately, I know he didn't rob the bank because when I followed him in, we discussed something and then he left and he didn't rob the bank. But they just leave that second part out. That's exactly what they're doing here. They're only providing information that they want to be able to spy. But they leave off all the information that would go against that. That means that the judge didn't have what he thought. The judge assumes he's getting all scrupulously accurate material evidence, but he's not getting that. I mean, to the point, remember point 1 there. Remember how damning this is. Point 1 there literally says they went to this FISA court and said, Carter Page had connections with Russians. He had connections with Russians, so that shows that there might be something there. Well, leaving out, he had connections with Russians in order to bring them down because he was working as an agent of the U.S. government, another agency, to cooperate with them. That's unbelievable. Now, the FISA application was renewed 3 more times after that, and the IG report finds time after time there were more things that while these renewals were going out, new information came to light that the FBI still was not providing to the judges. So in other words, stuff came up to show, wait a minute, maybe this Steele dossier, maybe it's not so legit. So more information came to light after it was initially used to spy on Carter Page, but the FBI just omitted those facts. They continue to submit renewals for the applications. So here's some of those. Number 8. They omitted the fact that Steele's primary subsource, who the FBI found credible, had made statements in January 2017 raising significant questions about the reliability of allegations included in the FISA application, including, for example, that she had no discussion with Person 1 concerning WikiLeaks, and there was nothing bad about the communications between Kremlin and the Trump team, and that she did not report to Steele in July 2016 that Page had met with Session. In other words, one of Steele's sources then gets interviewed after Steele's used as the linchpin for getting this FISA application. So the FBI finds this source credible and interviews he or she. And he or she says, no, a bunch of the stuff Steele said is not true. For example, there was nothing illegitimate revolving Russia, WikiLeaks, and the Trump campaign, that Carter Page wasn't involved with this Session character, that there wasn't inappropriate communications between the Kremlin and the Trump team, and then he or she never told Page much of this stuff. Now that's directly contradicting what Steele says in the dossier. So Steele's saying, I have a bunch of sources that tell me X. One of those sources says, no, that's not true. I didn't tell him X. The FBI finds that source credible, but they didn't tell the FISA judge, oh, actually, a lot of these claims that Steele makes are actually contradicted by someone he claims is his own source. They just said, oh, this information could be bad for us. This information could make it so a judge would say, oh, okay, no more spying on Carter Page then. And they didn't want that. They wanted to spy on Carter Page. So they just omitted that evidence. This particularly, if you read further in the IG report, which I'm not going to read the specifics, the IG found this particularly damning. He says that's incredibly troubling. Imagine, just think of this in, take out all the difficulty, but there's, all these names and all these agencies. If I say, hey, my friend Bill said that, you stole money. And the police are like, oh, okay, we trust Rob. He's a good guy. So we're going to investigate this person for stealing money. And then my friend Bill goes to the police and goes, actually, that's not true at all. I never told Rob that. That's damning to me, the supposed expert, in this case, Steele, and the allegations. When your source says, no, that's not correct, Steele doesn't have any firsthand knowledge. All he has is information through sources. So some of the big claims that one of his sources has made that Steele claims is actually going to the FBI and saying, no, that's not true at all. But the FBI ignores it. Moving on. 9. Omitted Page's prior relationship with another U.S. government agency despite being reminded by the other agency in June 2017, prior to the filing of the final renewal application about Page's past status with that agency. Instead of including this information with the final renewal application, the OGC attorney altered an email from the other agency so that the email stated Page was, quote, not a source for the other agency, which the FBI relied upon in signing the final renewal application. So remember when I talked about point 1 before? This is an extension of it. The FBI is claiming, oh, Page had connections with these Russians. That's shady. But he had connections in context of working with another government agency to bring down Russians. So in June of 2017, before the final application signed, that other agency gets in contact with the FBI. And they tell the FBI, look, this guy was a source for us. He was helping us bring down these Russians. An FBI agent altered the email to say it's not a source, the exact opposite of the truth. So again, the FBI is telling the opposite of the truth. It's not just because it's clear that they're trying to smear Page as having contact with these Russians. But when you realize, in the interest of the United States, he was working with a government agency to help bring these Russians down. So when this agency it's bad enough they didn't include that in the first report or the first application. But after the third application, when that agency contacts the FBI and says, hey, actually, he was a source for us. And they just literally change it to say, he wasn't a source. So now if you're a judge reading it, you're like, okay, so Carter Page never was a source for another government agency, so those rumors aren't true. He just had contact with these Russians. That is literally the opposite of the truth. I can't go on. Again, the threshold for spying on an American citizen should be very, very high. The threshold for allowing a sitting president's agency to spy on his political opposition for president should be so high it is unbelievable. But here, not only was the bar incredibly low, we actually have FBI agents intentionally withholding or altering information to justify the spying even more. 10. Omitted information from persons who previously had professional contacts with Steele or had direct knowledge of his work-related performance, including statements that Steele had no history of reporting in bad faith, but, quote, demonstrates lack of self-awareness, poor judgment, pursued people with political risk but no intelligence value, didn't always exercise great judgment, and it was not clear what he would have done to validate his reporting. In other words, they left off the fact that other professionals and people in the government agencies that had contact with Steele said, look, we're not saying he's a bad guy, but his information just isn't that credible. He doesn't verify it. He's kind of risky. He has an agenda. They left out that information because they're relying on Steele's credibility. So counter evidence to Steele's credibility would be damaging. Remember, what does the FBI want here? They really want to spy on Carter Page. Why? And we'll get to that at the end. So anything that could jeopardize their ability to spy on Carter Page in the Trump campaign, they're leaving that information out or altering it. 11. The omitted information obtained from Orr about Steele and his election reporting, including that 1. Steele's reporting was going to the Clinton's presidential campaign and others. 2. Simpson was paying Steele to discuss his reporting with the media. And 3. Steele was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him not being the U.S. president. In other words, this all goes to speak to this guy has an agenda. He's not just some unbiased person. He's being paid to dig up this dirt. He's giving it to the opposition, Hillary Clinton's team. He's talking to the media about it. It's being paid to talk to the media. And he desperately wants to stop Trump from winning. Now, that's all information that would speak to potential bias. Remember, the FBI themselves, as I showed you previously, is admitted in the IG report, never verified any of the information. We further know that's true because after 3 years, they still haven't been able to verify any of this information about not only Carter Page being a Russian spy, but anyone in Trump's orbit. They had no evidence of that after 3 years of investigations. But they didn't even attempt to verify it at the time, as the IG report says. So they're relying solely on Steele's credibility. So any information about, like, point 10 that I just said, that a bunch of professionals saying, actually, Steele made a mistake, he's not as good as being alleged, he doesn't verify stuff, he kind of takes risks. And now, number 11, he's incredibly biased, he's giving information to the Clintons, he's talking to the media, he desperately wants to keep Trump from being elected. That's relevant information that this judge needs to hear. When you're solely granting this FISA application based on one man's credibility, then information countering that credibility is relevant. But the FBI held that information. 12. Failed to update the description of Steele after information became known to the Crossfire Hurricane team from Bruce Orr, and others that provided greater clarity on the political origins and connections of Steele's reporting, including that Simpson was hired by someone associated with the Democratic Party. Again, just like the last point. He was paid by the DNC, but they never told the judge that. That might, if you're a judge, be relevant information. Oh, wait a minute. All of this unverified information is coming from Trump's political opponent? Yeah, that might be worth knowing, but that was held. 13. Failed to correct the assertion in the first FISA application that the FBI did not believe that Steele directly provided information to the reporter who wrote the September 23rd Yahoo News article. Even though there was no information in the Woods file to support this claim, and even after certain Crossfire officials learned in 2017, before the third renewal application, of an admission that Steele made in court filing about his interactions with the news media in the late summer of early fall 2016. So in the first application, they made the claim, and Steele's backed up by this Yahoo News article, and there's no way Steele was the source for the Yahoo News article. What turned out, that's exactly what happened. So imagine this. Steele says, hey, here's this information, it's true. This guy at Yahoo News will back me up. And the FBI's like, yeah, sounds good. Only problem is Yahoo News is just like, well, I was just told that by Steele myself. So it's Steele backing up Steele's own claims. The FBI claimed in the first FISA application, no, Steele wasn't the source for the Yahoo News. But even after the FBI found out in 2017, they still kept that information away from the judge. Number 14, omitted the finding from an FBI source validation report that Steele was suitable for continued operation, but that his past contributions to the FBI's criminal program had been, quote, minimally corroborated, and instead continued to assert in the source characterization statement that Steele's prior reporting had been, quote, corroborated and used in criminal proceedings. In other words, the FBI is making it seem like, this guy's really helped us in the past, and things he said were corroborated, and we've used him in criminal proceedings, and he's a great person. He's great at what he does. But in reality, they had found that this would only been minimally corroborated. So they're inflating the credentials of Steele because they have to rely merely on his credentials because they haven't verified anything. 15, they omitted Papadopoulos' statement to an FBI CHS in late October 2016 denying that the Trump campaign was involved with the circumstances of the DNC email hack, as said before. 16, omitted Joseph Mifsid's denials to the FBI that he supplied Papadopoulos with the information Papadopoulos shared with the FFG, suggesting that the campaign received an offer from Russia. Again, more evidence that they're leaving up. And 17, omitted information indicating that Page played no role in the Republican platform change on Russia's annexation of Ukraine is alleged in Report 95, which is inconsistent with the factual assertion relied upon to support probable cause in all 4 FISA applications. In other words, the claim was part of the reason that there was probable cause was Carter Page was instrumental in getting Trump and his candidacy and his team to change their policies towards Russia. Because the allegation was this: Page gets paid off. He's getting all this money from a gas company, shares in a gas company, and in exchange, he will convince the Trump campaign to basically have pro-Russian policies. That's the story the FBI was telling, only they knew by the time of the renewal applications that wasn't true at all. Page had no contact with Trump, had no ability whatsoever to change the policy decisions. Though we know that those policy decisions did not come from Carter Page. So a central theme that's being used to support this probable cause that Page was instrumental in causing these changes on Russian policy is just not true. But that was omitted once more. Now, let me get to their conclusions. This is the conclusions on the Carter Page application. Quote, we concluded that the failures described above and in this report represent serious performance failures by the supervisory and non-supervisory agents with responsibility over FISA application. These failures prevented OI from fully performing its gatekeeper function and deprived the decision makers the opportunity to make fully informed decisions. Although some of the factual misstatements and omissions we found in this review were arguably more significant than others, we believe that all of them, taken together, resulted in FISA applications that made it appear that the information supporting probable cause was stronger than the actual case. We identified at least 17 significant errors or omissions in the Carter Page FISA applications, and many additional errors in the Woods procedures. These errors and omissions resulted from case agents providing wrong or incomplete information to the OI and failing to flag important issues for discussion. While we did not find documentary or testimonial evidence of intentional misconduct on the part of the case agents who assisted the OI in preparing the application or the agents and supervisor who performed the Woods procedures, we also did not receive satisfactory explanation for the errors or problems we identified. In most instances, the agents and supervisors told us that they either did not know or recall why the information was not shared with the OI, that the failure to do so may have been an oversight, that they did not recognize at the time that the relevance of the information to the FISA application, or that they did not believe the missing information to be significant. On this last point, we believe that the case agents may have improperly substituted their own judgment in place of the judgment of the OI, or in place of the court, to weigh the probative value of all information. Further, the failure to update the OI and all significant case developments relevant to the FISA application led us to conclude that the agents and supervisors did not give appropriate attention or treatment to the facts that cut against probable cause, or reassess the information purporting the probable cause as the investigation progressed. The agents and the SSAs also did not follow or appear to even know the requirements in the Woods procedures to re-verify the factual assertions from previous applications that are repeated in renewal applications and verify source characterization statements with the CHS handling agent to document the verification. That so many basic and fundamental errors were made by 3 separate, hand-picked teams on one of the most sensitive FBI investigations that was briefed to the highest levels within the FBI, and that the FBI officials expected would eventually be subjugated to close scrutiny, raised significant questions regarding the FBI chain of command's management and supervision of the FISA process. FBI headquarters established a chain of command of Crossfire Hurricane that included close supervision by senior CD managers, who then briefed FBI leadership throughout the investigation. Although we do not expect managers and supervisors to know every fact about an investigation, or senior officials to know all the details of cases which they are briefed, in a sensitive, high-priority matter like this one, it is reasonable to expect that they will take the necessary steps to ensure that they are sufficiently familiar with the facts and circumstances supporting and potentially undermining a FISA application in order to provide effective oversight, consistent with their level of supervisory responsibility. We concluded that the information that was known to the managers, supervisors, and senior officials should have resulted in questions being raised regarding the reliability of Steele reporting and the probable cause supporting the FISA applications, but it did not. In our view, this was a failure not only of the operational team, but also of the managers and supervisors, including senior officials in the chain of command. For these reasons, we recommend the FBI review the performance of the employees who had responsibility for preparation, Woods review, or approval of FISA applications, as well as the managers, supervisors, and the chain of command of the Carter Page investigation, including senior officials, and take any action deemed appropriate. And then it goes on. So what did all of that just say? It's wordy. It basically says, at all levels, the agents that were doing the actual investigation to all the way up the chain of command, 3 separate handpicked teams failed over and over and over and over again. Violated FBI policy. Now, the Democrats will use this as what they'll say, oh, but it doesn't say they broke the law. Every time something like this happens, they just go, it was just ineptitude. It was just a big whoopsie that James Comey released classified information trying to go after Trump. It was just a big whoopsie that they gave everyone immunity and smashed the evidence and drives in the Hillary Clinton investigation. Oh, now it's just another big oopsie. Oops, sorry that we made up information, omitted information. 3 handpicked teams grossly violated FBI procedure that led to the spying of a presidential candidate based on opposition unverified research. Again, remember, we're constantly told about Watergate. A couple of bumbling fools going through trying to get information on Nixon's opponent. That was a huge deal. It didn't matter if that evidence ultimately led to a successful campaign by by Nixon. All that mattered was the effort to spy was bad. Well, here we know they're saying this spying was against FBI policy. The procedure was against FBI policy. Again, the threshold for spying on your opponent, the other party's candidate for president, should be so high it's ridiculous. Now, what's being said here is they don't have any information that this was politically motivated, that bias played a role in this. But that's because the IG, would, in order to make that claim, would have to be able to prove it. So he would have to have an email or someone saying, yes, we're doing this to screw Trump over. That's exactly why this is happening. He's not going to do that and include this in the report. But me and you and everyone outside of this could see, okay, who were these FBI agents? People like Page, Strzok, Rebecca, Baker, Comey, right? All of these people that we know afterwards, over and over and over again, have been anti-Trump, 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 over and over, talking about insurance policies, going on being CNN contributors, going on selling books, talk about how much they hate Trump. People like Sally Yates, for example. So is it just a coincidence? Well, they severely violated FBI policy. Every time they do it, it happens to either benefit the Democrats or Hillary or harm Trump. But it's always just a big accident, and their bias had nothing to do with it. This is damning. Now, never forget, CNN and all these places were telling us to even criticize the FBI. Remember they told us this? Oh, this is all conspiracy theories. To claim that the FBI did something inappropriate, that's harming our country. That's jeopardizing sources and methods. Remember? They all said, oh, Nunes is a big hack. When they started to release the Nunes report, remember? And the Grassler report that said, look, this dossier was used to spy on people connected to Trump's campaign. Oh, that's a lie. It's all been debunked. It's a lie. It's a lie. And it turns out it was all true. All of it. The Democrats tried to hide the truth. The intel agencies tried to hide the truth. The media tried to hide the truth. The media that's supposed to be the watchdog, that's supposed to be standing up for me and you, holding truth to power, they tried to bury this. They're going to continue to try to bury it. They're going to say it's not a big deal. Unverified opposition research from one political party used to spy on the other political party. That's it. More damaging than anything Ukraine, Russia, China, North Korea, any of these countries combined could do. Now, for the Democrats and the media that were going to go on to say, and one of the things that said is, oh, but the start of the investigation was warranted. And if you read that section of the IG report, it says, because the way the laws are written, the threshold, the bar is so low. That should trouble every one of us, because what the Democrats, intel agencies, and the media are suggesting is they will not be able to complain whatsoever if Donald Trump wakes up tomorrow and says, I think I'm going to go pay a lawyer's company, a firm, to get some former spy in whatever country to claim that whoever my opponent is got peed on in China is actually working on as an agent of China. And we're just going to spy on their campaign then. As long as, well, hey, we know that China was influenced with Feinstein. They had a spy that was in there with Feinstein. And we know that China seeks to influence our elections. And we know that China's a big enemy of ours. So all we need to do is find one person connected to whoever Trump's opponent will be that's ever been to China or had any relationship with people in China. Remember, look at the impeachment debacle. Despite the damning evidence we have of what was going on with Hunter Biden, they say, oh, that's not proof of anything. There shouldn't even be an investigation in that. Just because Carter Page happened to talk to people in Russia, all of a sudden, that justified spying on Trump's campaign? This shows the ridiculous double standards. You can bet if Trump does 1/10 of what the Obama administration did, using unverified opposition research to spy on his campaign or his opponent or the Republican opponent, there'll be riots in the street. But today, they'll all be okay with it. They'll say, oh, it was okay that the Obama administration did this. Perfectly fine. No need, we'll say, hey, okay, so a few mistakes were made, no big deal. No, that's not what went on. It's the biggest political scandal in the history of our country. If this becomes precedent, if no one's held accountable for this, it's literally the end of our republic. Because you will allow any sitting president to use the FBI based on any rumor as their own personal investigative agency. And guess what? Here's the truth. If the FBI turns almost anyone's life upside down, they could find some things that would be bad, and then they'd have no problem leaking into the press, as we see which would happen with Trump. That's doubly true if you're someone who's involved in national politics. You probably have skeletons in your closet, even if they're not criminal. Or maybe it's just your strategy and your plan. Well, hey, they get access to all that information as well. And we know that, I believe it was Baker that said specifically that Obama was in the loop of all this. I'm sorry, it was McCabe. So, yeah, don't believe the spin. Read the report yourself. This is page 15 of 476. I'm like 25 pages in. I talked about this since October of 2017. Using unverified opposition research to spy on your opponent for president is the biggest political scandal in the history of this country. And today, based on this IG report, I'm vindicated in everything I said. So thanks, everyone. Look for me to be putting out more detailed clips of what's going on with this IG report. I don't know if I'll get to them all today or as the week goes on, but I think it's a huge story that we should all be focused on. So please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and have a good one.